Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar today. I'm Francis Seeley from GlobalNet 21 and Enfield Voices, and this is one of the many webinars that we do. And today we're going to look at an issue that lots of people sort of debate in their own minds, is that when you're trying to develop sustainability in a locality or address climate change, do you have to do things big, or can you do them in a small way? I mean, big changes are important about stopping emissions and so on, but small activities that many community groups do are also important in bringing people on board and changing attitudes and culture, as well as bringing communities together. And we've got Sarah Cotton with us today, who's going to talk to us about a cafe in the North London Park, Broomfield Park in Enfield, and what she's doing there around the area of sustainability. So Sarah, thank you for joining us today. So let's start, shall we, by asking you if you could tell us something, just a little, about yourself and your background.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me this evening. My name is Sarah. I live in Palmers Green. I am a political lobbyist and stakeholder communications professional by my professional background. I am the mother of 2 teens, and I have years of experience working in the private and voluntary sector. And on top of all of those things, I'm also the founder and director of a small but perfectly formed, or almost perfectly formed, community cafe in Broomfield Park that is powered by volunteers.
Okay, well, that's a pretty impressive CV. Tell us then about the cafe. Tell us what Palmers Greenery is and why you called it that.
We called it that. My husband's going to take credit for the name. I will give him that. We wanted our journey to opening our hatches in 2014 started a number of years before. I basically was sick of using my professional skills for corporate gain often, and in 2008, when my second child, was born, my freelance work dried up, and I wanted to put my skills to good practice, and understood that there was nowhere really to meet at the time people like me, so community minded, but probably not spending very much time in my area, commuting in and out of town for work. And I had a baby and a buggy, and understood that there was probably some work to be done locally. And look, it was a very circuitous journey, but I was very fortunate to live in Palmers Green with a community, and met some neighbours who then became friends, and we started chatting about what it would be like potentially to see if we could have some kind of, and Palmers Green is very different now. There is lots of really good social and community enterprise in Palmers Green, but there wasn't 10 years ago. Sorry?
No, I was going to tell me, I mean, what's interesting in what you've just said, you were a political lobbyist, you work with corporations, and I started this by talking about, what's big and what's small, and you went from the big to the small. Now, was that a big cultural change for you?
Yes, but it was one that, it was a huge cultural change. I was young in my career, and I realized very early on that I like to be able to see the kind of impact of my work quite immediately, and working for big corporates, that was nigh on impossible, certainly as a junior member of the team. And I didn't realize I had an entrepreneurial spirit, but I realized that there were different ways of doing this, and I wanted to be able to be an agent of change, rather than a kind of a cog in the wheel. Like, looking back with hindsight, it wasn't quite as it wasn't so as intended as that, but kind of, I think, having had years to reflect. But this is very much a team project and effort. I'm the front man. I think, and I do spend a lot of time. I'm quite visible at the cafe, and behind the scenes in terms of kind of the contacts that the cafe has. But this is absolutely, and this is a team effort. And I'm kind of going off tangent already.
No, that's okay. Well, tell us. I mean, why did you choose a cafe? And is that all you wanted, just a cafe?
So no, we absolutely, and I'm going to talk about us, we as a small team of a steering group, but also our volunteers. We did not, none of us went into this because we wanted to run a retail cafe. I mean, as lovely as they are, but it was very clear that Palmers Green at the time, and probably the park in particular, needed some kind of hub. It needed a vehicle to coalesce around. And I had winter babies, and I used to spend hours and hours walking around the park, and I just didn't know how to meet women like me, or women not like me, or men not like me, just to meet my community. And so it became clear that a space would be an ideal opportunity. At the time, we looked at some empty high street properties, but landlords at the time did not make that very easy. And then I also just realized that I needed to start speaking to people locally, and people who had a good presence. So I started to make some connections with Carl Brown, who was very active on the Palmers Green Triangle, Philip Chard, who was very active at the time and known for the Palmers Green Festival. And we had the professional in me, we spent a lot of time just scoping what the opportunities and the potential was. And we did a lot of evidence and surveys, and it turned out that people wanted a little cafe in the park, not least because they were sick of waiting. A lot of the community remembered the cafe in what was Broomfield House, and was remembered very lovingly. So this was a meanwhile project 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it was a meanwhile project.
I certainly remember the cafe in Broomfield House a long, long time ago. So, I mean, you didn't want it to be a sort of normal commercial retail outlet. So did you sort of start it as volunteers, unpaid to begin with? Is that how you began?
It's how we began, and it's how we remain. In all honesty, we have for a number of reasons. Firstly, because I don't know how much the audience knows about Broomfield Park and restricted covenants, and I'm certainly not going to bore you with any details now, but it was quite clear to me that there would be local opposition, as there had been to any plans for the park for some kind of like Starbucks in the park. I mean, that was obviously never us, and I'm sorry if you need to edit that out, but any kind of commercial big kind of entity. But social enterprise was just getting going 10 years ago. It's very, very cool now, but 10 years ago, kind of the idea of a community business and a community asset was really just starting to take hold. And we were very lucky. I found a real champion in the I don't even remember the team. It's the waste and regeneration team, but it's the team at the council has responsibility for park. He was the director. His name was Neil Isaac, and he got what we were trying to do. And our whole strap line to him was, we want to show, and this was kind of what year are we looking about? 2009, 10. So it was really austerity, and we wanted to show the council that things could be done differently by community action and using community assets for social good.
So it's interesting, you looked at yourself as a social enterprise where you probably wanted to make some money, but you also wanted to add social value, which is what social enterprises do. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, are you self-financing, or do you have to get funding? And if you do, how do you get it?
So we're very lucky. So when we got grant funding to start up. So it was the time of the Enfield Residents Priority Fund, and we secured £35,000 from that to bring the building back into use. So we operate out of disused park toilets. They've been disused for about 5 years, and they were a liability to the council, basically. And so we got startup funding to put power in, take asbestos out, and to make the building fit for purpose. And from day one, we've been self-financing because we trade. We trade, we're profitable. We have a peppercorn rent with the council, and all of our workforce is powered by volunteers. We have a couple of paid roles, which are kind of overall. We have a paid cafe coordinator, and we don't anymore, have a paid volunteer coordinator. That's a newer role. And we also keep all of our finances at arm's length. So we have a paid local accountant, because that just makes life a lot easier.
I mean, volunteers are always a problem because they come and go. Have you had that problem, or have you been lucky?
Both, but I'm absolutely, and I'm just looking at the numbers. I have 3 of my volunteers on I can see on the participant list here now, of whom 2 have been with us for at least 5 years. We are blessed. We have a very, very loyal we're a family of volunteers. We do get new volunteers. Managing a group of volunteers in a park-based environment, and it's quite an intense volunteering experience, especially on a wet Wednesday in February, when in fact I could even say a wet Tuesday in July, because frankly we had 6 customers on Tuesday. I know that because I was there. But what our volunteers get from, and when we say all of our volunteers, that's myself included, there are no kind of paid directorships or anything like that. I'm very much part of the team as well. Our volunteer family is really wonderful, and we couldn't do any of what we do without them.
So, I mean, you've got volunteers, you've got a cafe, but you don't just want a cafe, do you? You created a sort of community around there. And you're in Broomfield Park, which is important. And that link is important as well, isn't it? Because both of you together can create all sorts of different communities.
Absolutely. So we work very closely with the Friends of the Park. I mean, to be honest, I became a committee member in the Friends just as we were setting up, because it was really important to me that we were a trusted entity, and the reason why our project has been successful is because there is a history through the Friends. There is a history of social action in Broomfield Park, and I would say it's a real gold standard across Enfield parks, and that's something that we continue to want to prove our business model, because I think there are lots of empty assets in Enfield parks that could mirror what we're doing. That's a whole other piece of work, but it's certainly an objective, along with about 10 other things on my priority to-do list. But we are, as you say, the narrative is that we are so much more than a park cafe. We are a vehicle for opportunity. So it's an opportunity for volunteering and giving back to your community, but it's also it's an opportunity for skills learning, and we have a partnership that was implemented in the school year before the pandemic with Wesley School in Edmonton, which is Enfield's special educational needs school. We work with their year 11s and 12s as part of their Learning for Life program, and they actually run the cafe. It was 2 days a week. We're just doing some final negotiations for September, but all those kinds of projects, we want to see the cafe as a vehicle, as an enabler for social change. And how you and I first started talking is that it's very clear to me that as we operate in a park, we've always, from the outset, we've always been very keen to minimize our environmental impact in the area in which we operate, but that just the sheer weight of just running what is effectively a retail business, however we describe it in our social narrative, we're still running a small business, and all of our team have other jobs and responsibilities as well. Many of our team have paid roles. I've gone a little off.
Well, let's take it a bit further, because I mean, you're building community, but you also have a various number of missions, don't you? And one of them is to promote sustainability and make people aware of climate change. I mean, why did you decide that was one of the areas you wanted to go down?
I mean, it's not one that we actively. It's built into our social and environment. I mean, we have twin social and environmental objectives, and it's one we went to go down because you can't operate a cafe. I think it's negligent to operate a cafe in a park if you don't care about your immediate surroundings. So from day one, it was very, very important to us that we could at least minimize, if we were going to do disposables, which we have from day one, they would be the best quality, compostable, biodegradable, and zero impact. And as far as possible, our small team has done research to find out to find the best products on the market, and we've borne the cost of that. Pre-COVID, we were trying to encourage reusable cups. We have all of our straws, all of our disposables are entirely compostable. But it feels like building back stronger needs to look at building back greener. It feels like the time is right. And we have just delivered a really big youth build project, and my team who know me will laugh at me, but it feels like it's time for the Greenery to own another project. And it's not saying that we're moving from one to the next, it's just that we can do these simultaneously. And we've been doing a lot of work with young people, and young people really care about the environment. And it's incumbent upon us to make sure that
tell us about that, because you told me about the partnerships you have, and one is with schools and with Broomfield, for example, and you have this journey to zero waste idea. What is that about?
So as you said, it is at the moment it is an idea, and it's one that we have talked about at our committee, and various volunteers who are on know that we struggle. There is no really basic things. There is no recycling facility in Broomfield Park, and so at the moment, even there's no composting, proper composting. So so much of our waste ends up in park bins, which is a false economy, because our park managers and keepers are spending all their time emptying waste, and if any of you have seen what Broomfield Park, or in fact any park, looks like after a busy summer weekend, you'll know that waste is a real issue in the park, and there are some real low-hanging fruits for our project that we would like to start to enable, and it's kind of a call to action. We don't have the resource or the capacity to do this on our own. And so this is a call to people to start developing ideas. And what I would like to say to everyone is that a micro project like ours is a really good place to start, because actually we can, and it goes back to why I wanted to work and lead a micro organization rather than, is that actually impact is we can be quite effective quite quickly. But we also have quite a good voice, and I think I would like to think that people will start to listen.
Someone said, please tell us about the zero taking days.
This is Helen. Hello, Helen. Helen has been isolating for 10 days, so I think she's having lots of fun with me. We have had days, and Helen is right. Helen runs, Helen and her husband Stuart are our Wednesday morning regulars, and we have had days where we have literally taken no money. So that's what Helen's saying there. But she also rightly says that what we want to do is start coordinating efforts and really creating a clamour to demonstrate to Enfield Council that we need to really, really tackle recycling in parks. And that is all about culture change and behaviour change, and everyone needs to play their part. But there is, we've talked about it ourselves. We could personally invest in recycling bins. I've got enough. There would be no point, because we are happy to work in partnership. But if the bins aren't emptied and sorted properly, there's no point. So there are some very low-hanging fruit, and I think if we all put some coordinated pressure. And again, for the cat, I'm sympathetic. This is not an easy nut to crack. But what we want to say to the council is, if we can get this right, and if Broomfield Park is prepared to be the blueprint and using our cafe and using the events, because we work very closely with the Friends of Broomfield Park to make those as zero waste as possible. If we can really go through the journey of what good recycling in public spaces looks like, then we can share that expertise with our neighbours and our neighbouring parks and beyond.
I mean, the idea of doing that, of cleaning up Broomfield Park, of recycling and so on, is an idea you talked about with me when we talked about the Big Green Festival that we're doing through the Enfield Climate Action Forum. And you thought that, focusing on that would be really good. You said to me, everyone talks about beautiful Broomfield. They don't talk about rubbish Broomfield. And having a day which highlights that in order to show how you can make it beautiful again is important. So what did you have in mind? Tell everyone, I mean, you've told me, but tell everyone what you had in mind for that festival and what you want to do then.
It really is. It's a plan in development in my head only at the moment. But and again, these are ones that I would like to talk with our existing volunteer team about. But it's in my head, it's something as simple as a community litter pick. But it will be, I think, again, all to be developed. So please don't hold me on this. But I think over the week of the festival, what would be great is to organise a series of litter picks with different parts of the community, and we can invite lots of community stakeholders to participate in that. And we're really well plugged into the Palmers Green Action team, and to we can reach different parts of the community, young people, older people, even have different days. This is all in my head for now, and I would love to work with people to develop and deliver this. But one of our volunteers also suggested, and I think is really impactful, would be a photo diary over that week of the litter that is picked, and how much of it could be recycled, how much of it could be reused, how much of it could be taken home, and then that tiny amount potentially that goes into landfill. And that for me, I'm thinking about that September week as the start of this journey for us. And it's one that I need to bring my team on board with. There is so much expertise amongst my team, amongst our volunteer pool, and the community beyond. And so, I mean, again, this is all in my head for now, but wouldn't it be lovely to demonstrate in 1 week what litter is left in the park?
What's great about what you say is that week for you becomes a catalyst for doing things thereafter, and I'm hoping everyone will look at it that way. It's not just a thing that happens and ends, it's a thing that starts other things happening, and that's important. And you said you have all these ideas in your head, and you're a person who has lots of ideas in your head, and ideas are fun. That's the fun part of it. It's actually them. Yeah, right, exactly. And you also have ideas, don't you, to develop a number of action groups as well. Do you want to tell us about that?
Look, as I said, we still have to run a cafe 5 days a week, and so I and my team give so much, and I need to invite my team who want to be involved in this to come along on this journey. But I need to find and identify some local champions who are really, this is their number one. They like the idea of the cafe, and they're happy to come and have a cup of tea and a slice of cake, but actually they don't want to do shifts, but they are absolutely passionate about environmental impact, sustainable growth. And again, that's a whole other piece of work that we haven't done, but someone who really knows what they're doing, and whose main role it would be is to lead this initiative. And so this is a call out to anyone out there. We would love to hear from you. If you're Palmers Green local, that would be really ideal. If you know Brimfield Park, even better. But someone who's really passionate about an opportunity to really take this massive litter waste bull by the horns and work kind of with us, but very autonomously as well, to start making a difference
But do you want to go beyond that in terms of action groups and idea, not just the litter and the waste, but do you have any other bigger ideas you'd like to see happen?
Look, again, lots of ideas. I'm a little fearful of being held to all of these, but look, there is we have a beautiful community growing space right by our beautiful community orchard. And again, I was having a conversation with the friends yesterday. We have often talked about growing things in the growing space, and not us growing it, but community groups using those raised beds to grow stuff. Our food offering at the cafe is very limited for lots of reasons, but it would be lovely if we could grow tomatoes and sell little pots of tomatoes, and just really simple seasonal things that really engage local people. But again, someone who knows more about food growing than me could run with a project like this, and there could be a real opportunity. I mean, Francis, the list will go on and on. We have 2 compost bins which have been there for 7 years since we launched, by the wall behind our cafe. no one knows what to do with them. If we have any master composters, I would love a composting working group. We save all our coffee grounds because we know we should, and we really want to recycle them, but we have no capacity to get them out into the community. We try and flog them to the volunteer teams in the park, but they're sick of our coffee grounds. But again, there is a massive piece of work of communication to park users and the community to say, come and take. And I know that, I think it's NCAF or one of the groups is doing a very nice map of the local area that has places where you can reuse or recycle. But all this takes, we're happy to be a vehicle, and we're happy to have the ideas, but we do need resource.
Yeah, I think that's probably Lovely Doorstep, who's doing a big project on social mapping, which is really
no, I know that one. It's not that one. This is specifically an environmental one. It's very local to Palmers Green, and if it's not you, I will try and find out. And I'm wondering whether anyone else knows.
But let me ask you then. You know, we're getting very close to the end of the time now, and you know, you're doing a project which is, you know, quite small. It's a micro project, and that is important in influencing and changing attitudes. What would you say to those people who say, I don't know what to do, I'm afraid of starting up something like this? What can I do to make a change? I'm only one person. How would you respond to that?
I would say, don't ever be scared of knowing that you have a good idea. But I would always say, also share your ideas. Share your ideas with your neighbours or with your friends or someone you bump into randomly. I mean, this project, I cannot reiterate enough. This cafe was, I don't even know whose idea it was, but somehow it grew because we talked about it, and we reached out, and we built partnerships with other people. I'm not a fan of duplication of effort, and I think, and that is one thing it was very clear to us at the time that there was a gap in the market. There was a gap for us here, and so if someone does have a kernel of an idea for any business, but particularly for a community business, spend some time properly talking to people, reaching out, shaping your ideas, and listening. We opened our hatches in 2014, but we spent 3 years in development, and for a tiny project, just because we knew we had to get it right.
Okay, so well, I mean, you certainly are getting it right, and I think lots of people really appreciate what you do and the enthusiasm you have. And because of that enthusiasm, you know, in 5 years' time, what would you like to see your project being?
So when we launched, we said in 5 years' time, so when we launched 7 years ago, we said that we would like to be a model or blueprint for similar park-based enterprises. There is not yet another similar project in any Broomfield Park. So even if our project doesn't evolve, which it will, it would look like success in 5 years' time if someone else has done something similar with a fair win from Enfield Council and with any support that we can offer. But for our project, I think at its core, it will probably stay not dissimilar. It will be ultimately volunteer powered, but we will have either we will make partnerships with existing volunteer groups that are now flourishing in Palmers Green, and we're so lucky for that, to achieve some of this sustainability and environmental work that we want to do. I think we will absolutely have we will have recycling bins. We will have a proper recycling and waste management system, a strategy and system that is delivered properly in Enfield, in Broomfield Park. And I would like to think that the park keepers are not picking up so much rubbish that is just discarded, and because we have a group either on patrol, volunteers, and who are changing hearts and minds to keep our park and by extension our high street tidier. I think we all have to also be realistic. Okay, so, you know, you're doing all this work, you depend on volunteers.
And you depend on people coming in and buying your coffee as well.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to know more about you, and I know locally they know a lot about you already, but if people wanted to know more about you, find out what you're doing, how all those wonderful ideas are turning into action, where would they go? Where would they go to find out?
The best place, and I've put the link in the chat here, Francis, is our Facebook page. We do have a side page on the Friends of Broomfield Park website, but it's not up to date and I don't have control of it. And again, that's on the to-do list. But Facebook, and hopefully most people are enabled and use Facebook. Facebook is the best place. You can always contact me directly, or me directly via email. And again, our email address is in the chat. I can give it verbally. It's the Palmers Greenery, all lowercase, @gmail.com. Or you can come to visit us in the park Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday and Sunday, and you'll always be met with a friendly smile.
Okay, all right, well thank you very much. And I mean, I know that everyone will be met with a friendly smile. And I do love your idea of having, similar cafes in other parks doing similar things, and then having a network of those. Just think of how powerful that would be.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be great. Anyhow, I mean, thank you for going through this and telling us what you do and showing how an idea, a social enterprise idea, can make a real difference, can involve people, volunteers and consumers, or we won't call them consumers, we call them citizens, being with you and developing those ideas with you. I think, you've inspired a lot of people to think about that. So it's been really great talking to you. So we'll end this part of the interview now.